Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boomer Bust channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry. And today, let me talk you off the ledge. I realized that not everybody's like me. Not everybody's like me when it comes to sports and football and all that. It has nothing to do with anything except the fact that I love the game for what it is, the beauty, the heartache, the defeat, the victory. Is definitely a big part of my life, but it's not to the point where it rides my emotions. And that's just who I am as a person. So I have to recognize that there are many fans that it is just a big deal to them. And not that it's not a big deal to me, but it controls their emotions is what I say. It affects it in a heavy way. Because I think you can know a lot about football. I've met people that know a lot, like very high level football IQ, and it affects their emotions. It's just who you are as a person. And so it has nothing to do with any of that. It's just that's how it hits you. Just like movies and music and everything, it hits us differently. That's how sports hits you. I love sports, obviously, or I love football. But it doesn't hit me to that point where it affects me in that way, especially because most of the time I'm doing stuff like this where I'm projecting out and I kind of know what's coming, or at least I feel I have a good idea of what's coming. So when the Bears do Bears things, it doesn't shock me and it doesn't send me into a spiral. But there are a lot of fans that I see online and everywhere else in my everyday life that it just completely, they go into a frenzy. So I want to talk you off the ledge, not by saying it's going to be all okay. I'm not even going to tell you that. We're going to start off being honest. It looks bad, but at the same time, that's what I told you in the offseason. So I'm not, again, shocked by that, and I'm not giving you any new news. This is kind of what we expected. And I do think that the offense, Justin Fields and all that, is worse than I would have expected. But to be 0-2 to kind of look like we did last year, that's not completely out of the realm of possibility. So that's just kind of how that is. But at the same time, that doesn't mean we can't, dissect it, analyze it, and talk about it. Because Twitter has ruined my life, aka X. I think I've said, man, it might be less than a year and a half I like really figured out Twitter and been on it. But ever since then, like I know people, I see things certain places, and I know people in real life that I'm like, okay, there's a lot of Bears fans and fans in general that think these silly things. But being on Twitter is like, wow, there's way more than I ever thought. And so then people clamor to all these quote unquote experts that say things that I think are way off the mark, or they say things that I've been saying for a while. So I see a lot more, and so I feel like there's a lot more to react to, when in actuality is not. That's not really my job to do all that and reach all those people. My job is to talk to the better Bears fans, the better football fans in general. And so that's the spirit I want to keep this in as we talk about it, because I'm more of a long-term, bigger picture guy anyway. And especially when you talk about football, like I've been doing this since the day Trubisky got drafted. And I've been on point because I know that, like, in the long-term scheme of things, this is how things can shake out. You got to be patient. And a lot of people live in the moment. That's the society we live in. Everybody wants to live in the moment of what's happening right now. And so they get caught up in that. So I take a lot of heat. I've heard all types of stuff for my thoughts. But in time, it all came to pass. So here we are. So when we're talking about being a better Bears fan, being a better fan, there's a couple concepts and principles you gotta adopt, and I've talked about many of them. But one of them that I'm going to repeat is that you won't always know everything, and that's what you got to settle with. And it's not even like a breaking down the Bears thing. It is just kind of like mental health for some of y'all. Like I see a lot of these people on Twitter, you're just not gonna know everything. So in the moment, people get real excited about somebody that's being, very theatrical and loud towards the Bears because they might say something they agree with or makes them feel better in the moment. Or even worse, they might adopt those people's thoughts, and that's why you see so many fans with false narratives. And they like, okay, this person is blaming this person, so that's who it is. I have to feel that because I need someone to blame right now. And you're like, yeah, it's that person. And then those fans wonder why, when that person's no longer there, it's still the same thing. So I've been through it with Trubisky, with Matt Nagy, with Ryan Pace. And it's the same stuff over and over again. Even the regimes before them, John Fox, everybody. Everybody wants to blame someone. Yeah, it's them. And then they leave, and then it's not different. And even, honestly, if the owners wish to change, because a lot of people like to blame them, I definitely suspect it's very possible it would be the same. So that's the thing you got to realize. You're not going to know everything. I've gave this example before because as a player, you know this, and as a coach, you definitely know this. I gave this example before. I was on a team, and we were in a game that was, decently tough. And in the second half, we ran a play that went big for a touchdown. Now, obviously, the head coaches or the quarterback's going to get some credit, lesser to the extent in high school. Quarterback's going to get some credit. Head coach going to get credit. OC's going to get credit. All that. And you're just going to be like, yeah, they did that. But the truth of the matter is that play actually came from the defensive coordinator. So during halftime, the defensive coordinator said, hey, I noticed they do this whenever you line up in this. Why don't you try this? And the head coach, to be honest, was very much kind of reacting in a you worry about your defense type of thing. And so eventually he made the decision to go with it. And so I completely understand, I recognize, and I accept that the quote unquote buck stops with you. You gotta, at the end of the day, make that decision. You're responsible for what you're responsible for. So yes, at the end of the day, the head coach had to decide to go with it. But that doesn't take away from the fact that that idea is not there unless the D coordinator's there. And so while I give certain credit and blame to people just based off their title, you got to really know what happens. And the truth is, it's very organic. There's some teams where the head coach is my way to highway. They decide everything. And then there's other teams where it's a lot more free flowing. You never know where ideas might come from, whether it's for practice, whether it's philosophy wise, whether it's a play call. You never know unless you're there. And I know that. You have to be in the building to really know exactly what's happening. So as much as people want to say, well, offense isn't working, it's Luke Getsy's fault. Luke Getsy's messed the play call up, or Luke Getsy messed up Justin Fields' footwork, or the quarterback coach did, or I see some people, which I talked about, Darnell Wright's not playing well. I see some people, this coach, the O-line coach messed this technique up. That, look, there's possibility that those things are true, but you will never know. And so when I hear people making these claims, Luke Getsy needs to get fired, Eberflus staff is terrible, they don't coach the team, you have to be there to know that. And because you're making such a stretch of a claim, I'm going to need some evidence, and I never see evidence. It's just what people say. So I bring all that up to say, number one, when we're talking about the Bears, we probably just will never know the truth, and we got to accept that. You just got to accept that at the end of the day. You're not going to know every in and out of what's happening with the team. So this idea of I have to find somebody to blame, it's just a false one, to be honest. I mean, there's cases where you might know for a fact that XYZ happened, but for the most part, it's false. You're not really going to know what's happening inside the building unless you inside the building. and who made what decision, who made what, suggestion. It's just that's what it is. So there's that. Now, get into the team and kind of where we are and what people think is going to happen going forward. It's not too different from what I've been saying, this whole time. We started off with a very gutted roster. And some people are going to believe you could start with a roster where you're tanking and everything is going to flip and you'll be okay. I don't necessarily believe in that. Now, I see people retroactively blaming Eberflus and the staff because they, quote unquote, allowed a bad team last year. First of all, that was Ryan Pohl's plan from the beginning. And second of all of y'all was on board with it. So the revisionist history is crazy to me. I don't want to hear that. So, but me personally, I don't necessarily believe that's what you should have did. And the main reason you shouldn't have did it is because it already has affected Justin Fields' development. And I said this last year. I said it his first year. I said this with Trubisky. You can't put a quarterback out there with no talent on the roster and expect them just to magically get better. And to be honest, Justin Fields might not be as good as some other players in development, because there are some players where all of a sudden they got a lot of talent. Now they can take things up a notch. That hasn't really been the case with Justin Fields. He hasn't broken his bad habits, but that doesn't change the fact that you put him in those bad habits because he's in a spot where he's running for his life last year all the time. And then you go to an offense that completely neuters him as a passer. And so now you expect him to have good habits, to have a good process, to have good ability to go through all the things that a fully fledged starting quarterback and a passing offense needs, and you never gave him that platform to develop those things. And so now that's where the problem. And so that was my stance from last year, and now we see the fruit of it going into this year. And Justin Fields, if I'm being quite honest, he takes most of the blame for me because that's what people want to talk about. But there's enough film and everything to analyze. Like I've said before, it's everybody. It ain't one person. And now that, the all 22 is cool, and it's cool to watch quarterback scouts and quarterback academies and people to break stuff down because they want to now look at the context. Now we got factions of fans. Oh, it's Gessie. Faction of fans, it's the O-line. Faction of fans, it's Justin Fields. Whatever. I'd rather us look at the actual film than to just be talking out the side of our neck, but we still got a long way to go as Better Bear fans. Because the Better Bear fans know, and I've been telling you, it's a little bit of everything. This is a team game. Sports media has ruined a lot of fans' ability to analyze, a lot of fans' ability to understand the game. This is not basketball, it's not tennis. This is a team game. There is no, whose fault is it? The same stupid question. Is it Belichick or is it Tom Brady more responsible? It is a collective effort. There is no quarterback if the O-line don't block. There is no receivers if the quarterback doesn't pass. There is no running back if the O-line don't block. And it's all part of the same organic thing. So when you talk about who's to blame, it's everyone at different times. And people hate that answer, and that's the truth. Because again, they just want to point the finger at one person. But as I've been telling you, there's plays where the O-line is atrocious. Fields has no time. There's times where Fields has enough time and he doesn't pull the trigger or he doesn't see something. And then there are times where the play call or the route combo is absolutely terrible. All of those things are true at the same time. It's a collection of it. So Justin Fields, to me, as I said, takes the biggest blame because there have been upgrades everywhere and there have been more opportunities than there have been in the past. But I'm not shocked because I said you don't just shake muscle memory like that. He's used to pulling the trigger, or he's used to pulling the ball down and running, is what I mean. He's used to taking out of there. First reason out there, I'm out of there, I got to be Superman. And that's what he's used to. And then when he does have time, he's so unused to it that it takes him forever and he wants to see the play open before he throws it. That's like most young quarterbacks. That's like most first year quarterbacks. He's in his third year. He should have had time to get past that, but he hasn't. And so Justin Fields, not in terms of like, obviously he's not doing it on purpose or he's a bad quarterback, but I put most of the blame on him because he does have to recognize, especially after the whole offseason, like this wasn't no new thing. You had Getsy, you had DJ Moore, Claypool. You knew what the team was, so he had to be able to take a step forward from where he was last year. And you look at us, again, I track certain stats. You look at us, we're not running the ball nearly as much as we did last year. So they're putting him in pass situations. Now, of course, the fickle Bears fan are going to say, why isn't he running? Why aren't we doing the offense last year? But then complain about the offense last year because you know you're not going to sustain that. Don't get trapped in the moment trying to win a play, trying to win a game. If you're talking about championship, you're not winning any championship doing what we did last year. And then, of course, we lose a lot of games. People complain. Now they're like, DJ Moore, we got to open it up. We got to do this. They do that. Oh, man, why are we putting him in these situations? Why are we taking away his best assets? And I see these dumb comments everywhere. Like, I have not heard or seen where the coaching staff has told Justin Fields not to run the ball or whatever. And they say, well, we got to boot. We got to play action boot. We got to roll out. We do. Are you watching the games? We do. If you think we're going to do it 20 times a game, then you are very mistaken on what wins football. No NFL defense is going to have that happen to them. So you cannot do it 50 times a game. We do it certain times. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But people act like they play Madden and they're like, whoa, Getsy needs to think of this play. Like, we've tried that stuff. And I ain't saying Getsy is perfect, but it's just some of these comments is like, are you really watching the game? So at the end of the day, I think Fields, it was upon him to take a step forward with a lot of the things around him. And again, he's had a lot more opportunities this year than he had last year. And we've seen very clearly on film, he does not pull the trigger. And there's a lot of things about his game that have not been polished or improved. And again, that comes from the Bears for giving him bad habits. But then there's still a part of him that has to get better. I've said this before. During draft season, I've changed my mind on a number of things because I've seen the power of players putting in individual work. The very misguided idea that is always talked about, you get this number one receiver and the quarterback jumps up. Yeah, the numbers might say that, but the numbers is a small part of the story. And that's why you look at now, like, how come Justin Fields got DJ Moore and he's just not magically a good quarterback? I've told you many times before. I watched Tua. I watched Jalen Hurts. I watched Josh Allen. Number of quarterbacks. It wasn't, oh, I got a new receiver, I'm just good now. No, what it was is they learned their offense. They learned how to read a progression. And in Josh Allen's case, he completely reworked his throwing motion with a very rarely seen regiment in the NFL, where he worked with a specialist that does golf to measure his body and his lower body and upper body mechanics and to fix it. And then we know it's broken down since then. He's more of a wild man again, but he did that. Justin Jefferson had a solid rookie year where people didn't see him coming, and he kept getting better because in that offseason, everybody wanted to work with him, and he worked with them. He learned how to run routes. Players get better on their own. And I can't sit here and act like, well, the coaching staff just didn't make him better. No, there's a part that Justin Fields has failed at. Point blank, period. And I watch him in practice, and I told you how I felt. You could see he just has not improved. And then there is a legitimate conversation about Luke Getsy and his ability to call better plays and to put us in better situations in terms of when you're calling certain things, down and distance, run versus pass versus play action screen. When you're calling that, there's a lot of improvement there. But the idea that, oh, he's just supposed to call everything that makes Justin Fields look good is not a reality. It's not a reality. And it's not winning football, even if you did, because guess what? That's what they did last year. And it's not winning football. And then the offensive line I've talked about many times. Having Tevin Jenkins out doesn't help. Nate Davis out. I don't think he was great week one anyway, but Tevin Jenkins hurts, moving people around. But Darnell Wright is playing terrible as well. So I've talked about those issues. Those issues are there. Even as a healthy O-line, I think that we're solid in the pass game and we're very good in the run game, but we haven't been healthy yet. And Justin Fields holds on to the ball, negates all of that. So those all mix together for a recipe of where we are right now. Then we talk about the defense. And I see a lot of people talking about how horrible and putrid we are. I would never say that, especially compared to last year. Last year, we were really bad. I wouldn't say absolute garbage, but we were really bad. And we're much better this year than we were last year. And even we showed it by going down 3 starters in the secondary and still playing. Like, I think we're a lot better than we were last year, but that doesn't mean we're a great unit either. And then comes you're a defensive head coach. Now, I think that stuff's stupid. I'm going to just say that right now. I think that stuff is so dumb. You're a defensive head coach. You're a head coach. Point blank, period. You're a head coach. So that stuff is out the window. But because of the social media and sports media, the talk is, why isn't the defense playing well? Well, you don't have that talent necessarily. And the D-line, that matters. Now, I told you in the breakdown, anyone that says that, the Bears suck and Bucks did what they wanted, you clearly didn't watch the game. I know you didn't watch the game because the Bears actually played pretty decently on defense. It's just the discipline and the tackling ability has to be cleaned up because Baker wasn't sitting comfortable in the pocket all game. Definitely. I mean, we talk about Mike Evans and the push off and all that. I think that a lot of calls are bad, but things like that, where it comes down to tackling and, just small mistakes, I think that game could have went a lot differently, even starting off in the first drive where we could have picked the ball off for a pick six. So, I don't think it's terrible, but it's just the lack of talent. I mean, especially along the D-line. We put resources into the linebacker position and we put it into the D-line, but we don't really have any juice in terms of premium pass rushers. And despite what you think, that changes a lot. Now, if you're a blitzing team, you're a Spagano, you're one of those guys, you're going to have packages where it's up to you to coach that in practice. And it doesn't really matter who's on the field. As long as people know what they're doing, you can do things. But when you're a team like us that wants to sit back and play coverage, you're going to need talent on the edge. And the edge changes everything. Because even if we really had a disruptor in the middle, with no edge player, a lot of that's going to be negated because they're going to get a ton of attention. And so obviously pass rush helps the coverage. So it just the D-line affects a lot of things. And with no juice on the edge for real, that makes it a lot harder to do anything really on defense, especially the way we want to play. So I guess, looking forward, you just have to understand where we are, where we came from last year, what the philosophy was, and where we are now. And yes, it's disappointing, it's frustrating. Not saying it's not, but it's just it's kind of where we are, man. And again, it's hard for me to sit here because people want to say, "Well, that sucks. Who's to blame? Who we gotta get rid of?" I don't care who you get rid of, to be honest. I don't care if you get rid of Getsy, Eberflus, Poles, Justin Fields. Nothing in the middle of the season is going to turn it around like that. It's just not. Like people, people always say that. Like they do not realize how much time goes into installing a unit, and that goes for every team and every facet of football. And people wonder why they what they call it, coach speak and player speak. Like that stuff is real. Y'all sports media makes it dismissive, so y'all make it dismissive. When someone says our continuity is great this year, whatever, that is highly important. As I pointed out with the Eagles, as far as maybe not being what they were last year, they got two new coordinators. Now you bring them in from inside, that's one thing, but still you're learning to do something completely different. And so to have the same person coming in that makes the philosophy and the game plan, to have the same coaches who knows what that person wants, to have the same players on the roster who all know, now you can build. Because despite what people say, they want to do the cool thing that worked. Oh, that worked. Let's do that. I see it on Twitter all the time. More of that. More of that. Despite what people say, what you want to do is master your base, your core, whatever it is on defense or offense. You want to master that. You got to do that throughout the game, like a bunch of times, dozen times. You got to practice it all the time. But until you master that, you can't branch out to new things. You can't adjust on the fly. You can't try to add on new things until you mastered the core. And so that is one of the things that, I talk about. You have to know what your identity is, what your core identity is, and you got to master it. So when people talk about firing coaches and getting rid of people in the middle, like week 2, week 3, it's just like, what good do you think that's going to do? I see it all the time. Players getting benched, coaches getting changed, whatever. And matter of fact, I do talk about that a lot. Like firing the head coach in the middle of the season, again, unless it's a toxic situation that needs to be changed, like a Urban Meyer, that does nothing. You get zero progress from firing a coach in the middle of the season like that. All it does is disrupt the continuity. So I'm not about to call for no coaches' jobs and all that. It is what it is. We got to live through it. And then you can evaluate after the season. But the fact is, it takes time to build these things into the team. You need repetition. You need muscle memory. So just getting rid of people is not really the answer. All right, so I asked for questions. I only got 3, so I'll answer those now. All right, so first up, is it possible for the Bears to run the Dolphins offense? That is a loaded question. First of all, you got to know what the Dolphins offense is. If you're talking about watching Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Tua putting up numbers, that's not a legitimate question or expectation. So you got to know what the Dolphins offense is when you're talking about schematically. Then we can talk more about it, but still, the personnel is very different. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I study the Dolphins offense. First of all, can they run it? No. As I just got finished saying, it takes a lot of time to install those things. You don't just pick up one day and get an offense or defense into the point of where that's your core philosophy. So you saw last year, we put in a package of plays that really changed the philosophy of what we did on offense. And we stuck to a lot of it. A lot of it became predictable. A lot of it became ineffective. You don't have an entire offseason to not only work up the playbook, but then to teach it and then not only teach it, but then to coach it. You don't have any of that. So to pivot to a Dolphins offense right now, no, we wouldn't be able to. Because number one, you don't know everything of what it actually is. And even by watching it and taking some concepts, you couldn't put everything in. Personnel wise, when I watch the Dolphins, I mean, obviously got a lot of speed. Essentially, what they want to do is they want to run you horizontal because you're so scared of vertical. And then when you get lax, they want to go vertical on you. So there's a lot of crossing routes, a lot of play action, flood, a lot of those things, very McVay-ish. But there's a very power run concept to it that comes from San Francisco and Mike McDaniel's time there. So certain aspects, maybe, but entirely no. Even if we had time, I wouldn't say we would be great at it because the thing you got to realize is what you're seeing is Tua throws with great anticipation. And this is one of those things. Do not get it confused. Do not get this, oh, they put this offense in, so now Tua looks good. Oh, he's got Tyreek Hill, so now he looks good. No. There are skill sets that Tua had and that he improved on to still make this offense run. It's not Madden. Nobody's holding the control and telling the quarterback what to do. The quarterback has to play his part in the offense in the NFL. So Tua coming out throws with great anticipation. And as I said, maybe last year, maybe even the year before when he was a rookie, he has to. He doesn't have a lot of velocity on his arm. He knows that. He said that. But he throws with great anticipation to offset that. And you have to know the offense. You have to have rhythm and timing. And you have to have accuracy to throw with that anticipation. There's no part of me that feels you could put Field in to that right now. He would do that same thing. Next question. Is there any way the Bears can be fixed? It just seems no matter what, stuff goes wrong. I hate to say it, but even if we had another coach, the Bears would be going in the wrong direction anyways. Absolutely. I mean, the question, the response to that is, when are you talking about? Are you talking about this season or are you talking about ever? Ever, obviously, is a long time. Yes, you can find some ways. There's a lot of directions the Bears could really focus in on to make this more of a winning organization. If you're talking about this season, I don't think we get much different. I don't think any team gets much different, especially with the stupid extra game, the stupid extra playoff seed. It is much more of a war of attrition than it even used to be. So the health is going to tell you most of what you need to know about a team in terms of competing. But outside of that, most teams don't just pivot and flip a switch during the season. Again, it takes a lot of time to put these things into place. I wouldn't say you are who you are, but a lot of that is what it is, especially if you don't have the foundation and the culture to have a team that's smart and that's ready to pick up new stuff. So as far as solutions, because that's what everybody, I guess, wants to know about in this year, at the end of the day, Justin Fields needs more protection. The offensive line availability in the league is very, very low. There's a lot of bad O-line plays, not just us. Good offensive linemen are way more the premium, and if you listen to me talk about NFL in general, I told you that's the next wave. Offensive line about to start getting paid because there's fewer and fewer of them. And I think we've been having some good drafts, but it takes some time for people to get acclimated. And so obviously we went with Darnell Wright. That's a good step. That's a great step. But I don't know that you can just pick up anybody else that is going to help tremendously, because they're not available, and if you're going to take them from a team, it's going to be hard to get them from a team without giving up a lot. That would go a very long way. As I said before, give Justin Fields 6 seconds like Jordan Love had against us, and then we can see what he does. Not going to happen most likely. So that's one way that you improve this thing. Luke Getsy does need to get better. As I told you in this last game, passing on first down was insane. And again, we had a big run, so now everybody's like, go to I formation, more of this. They think that's the answer. I'm not going to sit here and say that. But you got to figure out what's right for your roster, for your coaching staff, and something that you can be excellent at in execution. As I said before, when you're talking about mastering the core identity of you, those are the plays, those are the things that you're great at, that you're excellent at. And that's what the Bears have to get down to. So I'm not going to sit here and say, we had a big play and 21 personnel, always run 21. No, that's not the answer. Maybe, as I said, we are better at a gap scheme. Combo, lead block. I do agree with that, but that's for the coaches to figure out. And then if that's what you want to do, then start working in ways to do that. The best offenses, believe it or not, this ain't Madden. They don't do 2,000 plays. They do 7 plays really well, and they make it look different in a lot of different ways. That's any good offense. So you have to understand your foundation, and you have to work the crap out of it. Figuring out the communication. Okay, we come out here, we shift to this, or we come out here, motion here, or we do it out of this personnel, we do it out of this formation. That can come along. That can be thrown in, but you have to be able to run the actual play at a high level before you can do all the candy and the eye candy and the tricks. So I do think as a coaching staff on offense, you have to be much better at doing what the team executes well at. This idea of, oh, we just run a bootleg every time, get Justin Fields on the move, I think it's a little silly. Like, it gives you a two-way threat, yes, but obviously you're not going to do that all the game. And if you do, you can't just bootleg. You can't just roll out. You have to actually have a zone run game first before you can then work that off of that. So that's a twofold thing. But again, I don't necessarily think that's where Justin Fields is best. But if that's what the coaching staff believes, then you have to work in those 1 to 2, 3 plays so that you're excellent at it. And so that this thing isn't such a mystery. It is more of, we know we do and we're going to execute it. So there's one of the things as far as Getsy and all that. I already talked about Justin Fields. I mean, I wouldn't say it's too late, but he's just gotta. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know that he could step up in this year and change his habits, but he's got to really look hard and long at that. And again, I think that's really mostly it on the offensive side. Defensively, I talked about it last week, and we did a lot more of this. You saw it. They bought a lot more pressure packages. And we didn't tackle well. We got home a couple times. We didn't get Baker on the ground. We didn't tackle well. But I thought, like I said, the defense wasn't as bad as people are saying. We got a lot more pressure this game. And we're going to have to continue to do that. But with a banged up secondary, it might be what it is. It might be a wrap, because the thing is, if you're going to blitz heavy every game and leave a secondary out there full of backups, they're going to get torched eventually. I mean, we got the Chiefs coming up. So, depending on health and everything, you got to weigh that. But outside of getting somebody now, that I think is a little more doable. Getting an edge rusher or whatever. Now, it ain't going to be Bosa, nobody like that. But you might be able to get another veteran or whatever to give you some juice. But, that isn't super likely. because that's where we have the issues at. But if we can't do that, then we got to blitz more, and maybe you just got to blitz period a lot longer in practice. Get the team used to that. But that's a philosophical change that they haven't worked on, and you asking them to completely flip. So I hate to sound pessimistic and all those things, but it is just you kind of are where you are. I mean, once you get into the season, you put a lot of time into what you wanted to do, and it's hard to pivot. And then the last question: is it possible that the Bears will possess the top two picks this year? Um, yes, possible. I wouldn't put money on it. The thing that I would say, you look at the Panthers' schedule. They got some winnable games. Now, obviously, people want to be like, they're 0-2, they sucked, horrible, he's a bust, all that stupid stuff. Bryce Young is an amazing quarterback. Not just because I felt that way coming out of draft. You look at him now, there's definitely some rookie things he got to get over, but the accuracy, the time, and the touch is there. It's only a matter of time to get him some protection, to get him some weapons. He would go absolutely insane. The way I always tell you, again, is these false narratives. There's no quarterback versus quarterback. The only way you could really have a quarterback versus quarterback is if you put them on the same team and have them play the same defense. So I always talk about it in that sense. So if you take, let's say the Chargers, you take Bryce Young, put him on the Chargers. You take Justin Fields, put him on the Chargers. I think Bryce Young would be a way better quarterback. He'd be more prolific, way quicker than Justin Fields will. I think he has that type of talent. So they have some teams, like I said, being in the NFC South is one thing, but then they got some other teams on their schedule that they could beat. Our schedule, I don't know like the back of my hand, but I suspect we're going to be able to catch some games, definitely. And if we start rolling, we might catch momentum. But top two picks in the league, that might be tough because of the Cardinals. But I would say it's a possibility. I would say it's a possibility. And that'd be interesting to say the least. All right, so that's it for me, man. I've been talking a lot, probably a million more things to say, but go to the comment section, let me know what you think. Share around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.